Howdy folks, you're watching Deucing Guns, and no, the title of this video was not clickbait. You can in fact find a rifle brand new in box, chambered in a 300 Win Mag for under $200. What rifle is that, you ask? Well, it is the Thompson Center Compass rifle. The reason why they're selling these, or the reason why you can get these for about $200, is because they've lost a little bit of market share to the other manufacturers out there, and they're trying to gain that back. So first of all, they're giving their distributors a much lower price, basically a big discount there, so you can get them at the store for a little under $300. And on top of that, they are giving out a $75 rebate to anyone who purchases one before the end of the year of 2017. So you have now until December 31st of 2017 to pick one of these up. First of all, what do you get in the box? Well, for one thing, you get the rifle itself. And it comes with this little placard on the barrel. You can go ahead and throw that aside because that's really for display purposes only. In the store, you get one magazine, and Magnum calibers, you get, like 300 Win Mag and 7mm mag. You get a 4-shot rotary magazine. It's nice, it fits completely flush with the stock. With something smaller, because I also have a 6.5 Creedmoor back here, I will do a review of that later. You get a 5-shot magazine in that, again, completely flush with the stock, which is nice. It comes with a mount for your optics already there, so that's ready to go for a scope. And from the factory, the muzzle, of course this is unloaded, of course. The muzzle is already threaded for all of you suppressor users out there. Or if you want to put a muzzle brake on it, you can do that as well. A muzzle brake on a 300 Win Mag coming back at you. You better double up on your hearing protection. Let me do that right now. Okay, now what else we got here? The stock it's a polymer stock. Everything's pretty lightweight. It's about 7.5 pounds or so, which means 300 Win Mag, 7.5 pound rifle. It's going to kick like a mule. So I'm looking forward to pulling a trigger on this. Now let's get into the nuts and bolts of the review. First of all, before I've shot it, before I've taken it apart, how does it feel in my hand? Well, it shoulders nicely. The comb on the stock lines up my sight really well, so I'll be able to stick a scope, as low down as possible that I can, and it should line up really well. The 24-inch barrel, it does put a little bit of weight on the muzzle end of it, but it's not overly front heavy. It's not too bad. The stock feels reasonably stiff. I can move it. It's supposed to be free floated. I'll check that here in a second. But I can move the stock over. Let me see if I can show you that right there. Yeah, I can squeeze the stock over against the barrel if I want to. So it's not overly stiff like, say, a walnut stock would be, but it's not overly heavy like a walnut stock would be either. Let's see. It's got a nice butt pad on it. It's a very squishy butt pad, which will help with the recoil of the this big Magnum round and the lightweight rifle. The magazine comes out with one little button there, and it's also reminiscent of a lot of different bolt action rifles with detachable magazines. So nothing new there. Alrighty, so how does the bolt feel? Because that is very, very indicative of quality. Move it up there, slide it back. It's not a super precise feeling bolt. All right, let's dry fire real quick. That's a pretty nice trigger out of the box. And to take her apart, go ahead and remove the magazine first of all. Of course, this is a very sturdy polymer magazine. You can tell there's a lot of glass fiber in that polymer, so it's actually pretty stiff. And before we remove the bolt for disassembly, let me show you how the safety works. Let me go ahead and cock it there. Okay, so the safety up forward like that is fire. So there we go, that fired. And if you pull it halfway, that's really stiff. Okay, halfway back, you can still actuate the bolt, but the trigger is locked out, so there's no firing there. And if you want to lock down the bolt and the trigger, pull it all the way back, and that locks the bolt itself and locks the trigger, so you have no movement at all. And to completely remove the bolt, go ahead and open up the action, pull it back, and there's a lever back here, just like a Mauser or pretty much anything else out there on the market. Push that down, and you pull it all the way out. Now, flip her over, and we have 2 screws right here. Number one, we have a bunch of gusseting, really stiff, and still retains its lightweightness there. Get out my pointer here, and I can point out some things. We have 2 aluminum pillars there for the screws to go through, and we have a recoil lug right there that's steel, and that is recessed into the stock, and it coincides with the receiver right there. And here's something I didn't know about until I pulled the rifle out of the box. Smith & Wesson apparently at some point purchased Thompson Center arms. And here's the trigger mechanism. You can see those two nuts right there. That's where you would adjust the trigger weight. And we have the over travel adjustment right there in that nut. And last but not least, let's take a look at the bolt here. It's nice and heavy. It is blued. Nothing really special about it. It is a 3-lug design though, which is nice. Get that to focus there. Nice 3-lugged heavy-duty design, so that should be able to handle the recoil just fine. Okay, going for the center target right there at 100 yards. Already have my other camera zoomed in on it. That'll wake you up. Very first round, I am on target. I'm a little bit low, about 2 inches low, and that was the very first shot. Yep, everything's golden. I never cleaned the bolt out. I got a little bit of manufacturing grease that came out with the firing pin. Yeah, looks good. All right, now let's see if I get that 3-shot group of 1 inch that they say at 100 yards I'm supposed to get from the factory. All right. Okay, that's my very first 3-shot group there. Alrighty folks, we are back from the range, and I have to say, I am pretty impressed with the Thompson Center Compass chambered in 300 Win Mag. Now, I wasn't impressed at first. I'll show close-ups of this, but the first group, the first 3-round group there was a little over 3 inches, like 3¼ inches of a group at 100 yards. Not great, not spectacular at all. Even with cramp ammo, that is not a great group. But those were the first 3 rounds I fired out of this thing. The second group dropped down to 2 inches. The third group, shots 7, 8, and 9, ended up being about 1.3 inches at 100 yards. Not bad at all, especially for non-match grade ammo. This is just plain, this was the cheapest 300 Win Mag ammo I could find at Academy Sports. And as far as my setup is concerned, it was the stock basic rifle straight out of the box. I just cleaned it, took it to the range, and I mounted a Vortex Crossfire 2 scope on it. It's the 4 to 12 power by 50. I'll put a link in the description or in the comments section where you can find this on Amazon pretty cheaply. It's a fantastic scope. It's been on pretty much every platform I own, and it has handled everything I've thrown at it with grace. But now back to the rifle. The trigger smoothed up a little bit. It was already pretty good, but it smoothed up and lightened up a little bit through the 9 trigger pulls I did on it. Actually did 12 because there was a little issue, and I'll tell you about that here in a second. The bolt actually smoothed up a little bit too, because the bolt would catch a little bit when I was just dry firing it, but it did smooth out quite a bit. Now, what was the issue? Well, the issue was the fact that these cartridges are pretty long. So that's a lot of bullet there. That's a lot of cartridge there. So I was actually, it is the bolt action equivalent of short chucking a shotgun, where I was ejecting the round, or ejecting the old brass, the spent brass, but I was not giving that last little tug. You need basically an extra 1/4 inch there, and that allows the next cartridge to fall up and then be chambered in. And without that, it stayed down in the bottom of the magazine. Now, as far as wear and tear goes, it has almost no sign of being used for these 9 rounds. Of course, it's only 9 rounds. Not a big deal at all. It should handle it with grace, and it did. The only section that I do see a few nicks right here where the used brass, when I would eject the brass, I eject it with some heft, with some force. So the stock's showing a few nicks here and there. Not a big deal. That's what it's meant to do. There's no beauty queen. Where the rubber meets the road is the bolt and the bolt head and everything like that. And you can see right there, that shows absolutely no use whatsoever. And again, only 9 rounds. It shouldn't show any use. This should be good for thousands of rounds. And there we go. Now the rifle ships with the trigger at about 5.5 pounds or so. And it can be lightened down to about 3 pounds, 2.5 to 3 pounds, which is pretty remarkable for an out-of-the-box trigger. And now at this point in the game, I've been talking about all the positives. But let's talk about the negatives, because there are some negatives with this product. Like every product out there has a positive and negative side of it. If you have a problem with that, go ahead and turn the channel off right now, because I don't pull punches on my reviews. So every review out there will have a negative aspect. If it's a perfect product, it's going to be too expensive. If it is a very reasonably priced product, at one point there was some compromise to the product itself. And basically what the compromise was, the stock itself is a very lightweight stock. It's pretty, the foregrip, the forend there is pretty stiff. You can move it. It's not 100% stable. It can be moved, but it's pretty stiff. The buttstock, that sounds very hollow. I don't know if you can hear that or not. That's completely hollow, and it feels cheap. It really does feel cheap. Now, it held up the recoil just fine. It did the job it's supposed to do. No problem at all. But it just feels kind of cheap. And the second issue is the bolt. Now, once it's locked down, it is fine. It is completely 100% rock solid. You open up that bolt, though, you move it back just a little bit, and it rattles. That is not a tight fit between the bolt and the receiver. Because some of the super high quality rifles, that feels like a piston. It feels like a hydraulic piston going back and forth. You can feel it just perfectly machined. This is not that. This has plenty of room for error, for dirt, for grease and grime, whatever, which is good for the field, but it doesn't scream of high quality. So you feel the rattle right there. You can hear that. And if you take it way back, there is quite a bit of play between the receiver and the bolt. Now, when I first took it to the range, the first couple of shots, I did have an issue where it was hanging up. At the very back, the bolt would hang up in the receiver, and it took a little bit of finagling to get it to go forward. Since then, though, I have worked it a few times, and just the firing itself, I only fired it 9 times, and the firing itself has really loosened up to where it is not an issue anymore. So if you do buy one of these, I highly recommend take it to the range, immediately just clean it, then take it to the range and put at least 2 or 3 boxes through it, and that will completely loosen up the action, where it will still be loose. It will still rattle like that, but it will cycle without an issue once you've really opened it up and heated it up with some firing. And the third issue is the safety. The safety is hard to manipulate. Put it into fire, very easy. Put it on safe is kind of difficult. It is not an easy safety to manipulate, which I guess is a good thing because you don't want that accidentally going on or off. But there are other rifle manufacturers that have found a way to put a safety on here that is not this difficult to manipulate. And the fourth issue I have with this rifle, now again, it's nitpicky. All these are nitpicky. But do you really want a reviewer to just love everything they touch? No, of course not. You would never take that person's word for anything ever. If that's the kind of reviewer you need to go to another channel, because I'm going to find fault with things. I'm going to find things that are great. At this rifle, I think this is a fantastic rifle, but there are still things, still places it could improve upon. I mean, I like it so much I'm going to buy a third one. So obviously I like it, but there are still some places that it can improve. And the fourth thing that I find that is an issue is how light it is. This is a 300 Win Mag. It's a very powerful cartridge. And this is a very light rifle. It's 7.5 pounds. So 7.5 pounds shooting a 300 Win Mag produces quite a bit of recoil. So if you're sensitive to sound or sensitive to recoil, forget about the 300 Win Mag, forget about the 7mm mag, and stay with the standard cartridge. Stay with the 308, the 30-06, the 223, the 22-250, something of that nature, because the Magnum caliber, they pack a wallop. They really do. Now at this point, you probably ask yourself, Deuce, where do you find these at $200? Well, remember, there is a $75 rebate from Thompson Center, and I will leave a link, actually several links in the description below the video, to the different retailers that are selling these for under $300. I actually saw one just a few days ago that was retail for like $270, which means that you'd get it shipped to you for $195 plus whatever transfer fee you have going on locally. Does Deuce think you should buy a Thompson Center Compass rifle? Well, if you're in the market for a bolt action rifle that is not too pretty, but is exceptionally affordable and very usable in the field, then you really can't afford to not buy this rifle. As long as you're looking for something, one of those many popular chamberings that it offers, again, this is just the best deal on the market right now. It's at least a $500 rifle that you're getting for 200 bucks. You can't beat that. Well, guys, that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give me a like and go up subscribe. A lot more is on the way. And I will be doing another review on the 6.5 Creedmoor later on, and probably the 308 that I will eventually buy as well. So again, go ahead and hit the subscribe button for more content like that. And if you have any comments, questions, or show ideas, leave that in the comment box below the video. And of course, you guys have a great day. See ya.